Good evening once again, 10:30 on a Friday evening, and your host Manzoor Nadir with Hold No Bars. Well, that big day we were all waiting for, June the 18th, 10 a.m., and the Caribbean Court of Justice handed down their decision with respect to two important issues before it: the legality of the chairman of GCOM, the legality of his appointment by President, His Excellency David Granger, retired Brigadier General David Granger, and the other issue was the validity of the no confidence motion. Well, all that is history. And in fact, I had a program just a few hours after that on my regular radio talk show. I didn't deal at all with the decision of the court. I had focused my attention on what would happen after. In fact, I was really concerned to the extent that I was stressed, because while from our perspective and from all democratic loving people, that the CCJ reaffirmed democratic tradition, democratic conventions, and more importantly, reaffirming the principles that this fledgling democracy in Guyana was operating on. And we have dealt with that on program after program with respect to the largest democracy in the world, India. The no confidence motion there, I shouldn't say the confidence motion there, was defeated by one vote out of 500 and something, one vote. And in the British Parliament, we had mentioned that Prime Minister Thatcher moved a vote of no confidence against Callaghan when she was challenging, and that was successful by one vote. The mother of democracy, one vote, was a majority, and the largest democracy in the world, India, one vote was a majority. Anyway, that's history. So I dealt with the issue of what happens next on my program, which was just a couple hours after the ruling of the CCJ. And what I dealt with in particular on that program was the issue of President Granger, His Excellency. And I was most astonished to see the statement emanating from the highest office of the land. Why? Because the Caribbean Court of Justice concluded that the parties in Guyana should meet, and so that they can come to the court with a recommendation for consensus on the way forward. These judges occupying the highest position of the judicature in the Caribbean came together and said, look, let the parties in Guyana talk. But immediately, we got a statement, an inflammatory, I would say, a statement which defied logic. All the people who said His Excellency David Granger was a good man, a great man, but the people behind him was causing problems. Hey, right? This was a statement emanating from His Excellency David Granger. The statement said, in spite of the ruling, they said they're going to obey the ruling, right? And he says, it is now clear that the Guyanese people need certainty about the future and a way forward. I want to outline a clear path. This is no longer about His Excellency David Granger. He is on borrowed time. He can't outline a clear path. He has to sit with the leader of the opposition for them to outline a consensual way forward to elections. But David Granger said he wants to outline a clear path. Then he comes out with the most outrageous accusations that as many as 200,000 incorrect entries may be on the electoral list. 200,000. Now, the electoral list had in 2015, that electoral list had close to 520,000 odd names. Every single year, and I've been through this on several programs on Hold No Bar, every year, about 20,000 persons migrate onto the voters list. Every year, about 20,000 persons. How they migrate onto the voters list? From the age of 14, a person is eligible to be registered in something called the National Register of Registrants, meaning a National Citizen Register. So once you become 14 years of age, and they specify the qualifying date, then you can go to the center when there is a continuous registration period and you register and you get an ID card. Now, when it's time to prepare a preliminary list of electors, preliminary list of voters, what is the process is that everyone who is 18 years as of a qualifying date is extracted from that National Register of Registrants. And they come onto this preliminary list of electors, PLE or preliminary voters list. They've changed the name, meaning the same thing, right? And so a list is published, and when that list is published, there is something called a claims and objections period. And when that list is published, every political party gets a copy and it's put on the GCOM website. So if you check the list and you see your name is not there and you did register, you can go and carry in your documents, it'll be corrected. So when the final list comes out, you're on. But His Excellency, our learned, our informed, our leader, His Excellency, the General, David Granger, he says some 200,000 entries could be incorrect. So he is in one fell swoop going to take off almost 40% of the names he's saying incorrect. Well, I don't know about the other parties, but I know from the field work that has been carried out, that field work has been able to guide us with respect to the number of persons who need to transfer, who were dead and comes off the voters list, and what corrections could be made. But the president comes out of the blue within 2 hours after the CCJ and makes this outrageous statement about 200,000 persons or 200,000 incorrect entries, and talking about all these young people who are disenfranchised. The people who would have made a few young persons disenfranchised would be His Excellency David Granger and the representative of the APNU-PNC AFC coalition, who did not want to do a continuous registration period come January or February this year, so that those persons who may have returned from Venezuela, those persons who did not get a chance to register on their 18 years, they would have had a chance to do it already, and a new list of electors could have been published. And last week I mentioned, I think I did, but I do quite a few of these programs. It could be on another program. And just bear with me, callers, because let me make my point and then I'll give you a chance to make your point or seek clarification. Last week I mentioned Jamaica, 1.9 million voters out of 2.5. So the ratios are about the same. Every Caribbean country has the same challenge. You could only take off the people who have died, right? Because the others are legally registered. They may not be temporarily resident in the country, but non-residency is not any criterion for deletion. Non-residency is not a criterion for deletion. So you have to keep those persons on the list. I will have to travel next month. Let's say the house registration goes on, and I don't get back when those people visit me. I'm off. In spite of the fact that there is no legislation providing for house-to-house registration. None. Secondly, we have so many persons. There were like 24 housing developments which have started under Irfan Ali, the honorable member and presidential candidate of the PPPC, and the PPP administrations, right? And people have been moving through. And most of them, you know what? Because there's greater participation of women in our workforce today, I think we are now up to about 55%, meaning that in most homes you have both mother and father, husband and wife working. And so these people will come at the time they choose as the GCOM registration officials. It mightn't be a time when I'm home. In fact, sometimes it could be both. Mrs. Nadir and I are out. And GCOM is not going to come every day and knock and see if I'm home. So you have a greater chance of people being left off. And this is why he's talking about 200,000. Because that is President Granger and the APNU AFC coalition intention to drop off 200,000 names from the perceived PPPC supporters to balance this equation, he feels. That's why they're insisting on this illegality of house-to-house registration. So when I read this, it was, as they say, statements to make your blood boil. And then, and this is within hours, the CCJ just made a ruling. The president comes out with these outrageous claims. And the Constitution entitles all citizens over the age of 18 to vote. Of course. And they have had 12 periods of continuous registration, an opportunity to always get, and I mentioned Jamaica again last week when I said Jamaica just finished another one of these exercises, and they publish a new register of voters on the 31st of May was the date cutoff. And so while their list expired, within months they had a new list. But more particularly in Jamaica, what they did, they had a special exercise to remove the names of people who have died. Visiting, checking, getting the parliamentary parties scrutineering, and they took off 109,000 names. And I said earlier in this program and in other places that we can do a death exercise, because all it needs to take a dead person name off from the voters list is GRA to send a list over to GCOM. But we have to get that list accurate. So put a few teams of persons at GRO, go through all the documents from the 10 administrative regions, and then look and see all the deaths. So it's an easy exercise to do. Easy exercise. So we had this statement from His Excellency the President talking about me and my government. All that's good. But it also shows the type of person. I've never believed that David Granger was a Democrat. And I made, since he became president, I made my a hobby of studying, like he did, some of the ancient strategies of engagement. Yes, and I can go back to quite a bit. And I see so many similarities, you know. First similarity is the generals of old and the conquerors and emperors of old ancient times, they weren't Democrats. They were backstabbers and did anything in power to stay a dictator. David Granger is coming from a party that has that history. And all that he has done hasn't endeared him to anyone that he has been different. He has been different. So the first thing he does is unilaterally appoint the chairman of the Elections Commission. And from the day of that appointment, I think, almost a year months ago, I spoke of the similarity with James Patterson, and a man named Jackson, the Jackson Commission. Jackson had predated Harold Bullers, who was totally just a puppet. And we see it playing out. Now today, Patterson don't know if he should resign. Mr. Patterson, you don't have to resign, you're illegal. They should shut the door on you. Keith Lowenfield has no right to listen to any word from Patterson because his appointment was illegal. And anything done with an illegal act is illegal. That's very simple. So you, Mr. Patterson, you don't have to think about resigning. You have been resigned. You've been resigned. Then the president talks about he's waiting on GCOM. Instead of talking about picking one of the 18 names that he was given by the leader of the opposition. And you have in that list a person who had served as the chairman of the Elections Commission. And you have very good younger people on the list too. So I don't have any bones about the status of Patterson. The courts don't have any bones about it. The courts was quite clear. The CCJ, the final court for Guyana, says your appointment was illegal, and so you can't sit in the chair. But the President Granger, still insists that Mr. Patterson, well, I shouldn't say he insists, but he's talking about GCOM. GCOM is the chairman and the 6 commissioners. If there is no GCOM, I don't think you can have how the Elections Commission is established. You can't have the 6 people alone meeting outside of a chair. And that is why it took so long. It took President Granger 8 months. And then he come and brush and said, well, 8 months gone, he has to do this. And then the final thing I want to talk about before I open the lines to give your views, and I listen to you, is what happened in Bartica. And no one can tell me, no one can say to me that the president, the attorney general, and his ministers who were on an outreach didn't have a lot of communication while and after that CCJ ruling was happening. Because immediately you start here, Mr. Nagamutu says he is putting on his olive green, the revolutionary clothes. He has gone totally PNC. He walked away from AFC because he realized that Camraj would beat him hands down. So he walked away. I would want to say he walked away from the battle with his tail between his legs. So Nagamutu in Bartica now puts on his green revolutionary clothing, he said. And he's endorsed by Joseph Harmon. as the best prime minister Guyana ever had. Yes. So he puts on his revolutionary gear. And our dear finance minister talk about war now break. Remember, Basil Williams at the CCJ was threatening all kinds of things. War now break. The man who said he went to Bartica in 1978, 30 years ago. But I didn't do the math. Facebook and all them social media did the math. He said he went to Bartica 30 years ago in 1978. I think people say it was 41. We could understand why when he's spending $1, he really don't know how much money he got. That's why we're in the problems we have today with the economy. But he talks about, Finance Minister Jordan speaks about war now break. And we've seen the mobilization today, the government picketing itself, no house to house, no election. Gosh, these people haven't learned a thing. Haven't learned a thing. I remember in 92, President Carter said, whoever takes the election as these results are announced, he knows is, whoever takes to the streets after these results are announced, he knows is a loser. So these are the facts. These are the facts. I can summarize these facts to say that clearly, as we have said, and I hold that view strongly, that we are in the hands of a dictatorial regime. Last week I said his words were hypocritical as we spoke about what he did at Albion and talking to sugar workers. Tonight, we've had to go a step further. So this is the reality on the ground. What next? So I've been inundated with all of you viewers who have stored the cell number, thank you very much, with a lot of advice. We cannot allow ourselves to get enshackled by our fears. We cannot. We cannot say what has to be done without lifting a finger to do some of it. We cannot ask somebody to do something which we should start doing ourselves. And what should we start doing? We have to ensure that we are mobilized in the communities. So whenever these elections are called, we are coming out in numbers to vote them out. We have to ensure that we are able to scrutinize every single action. We are able to take pictures of the statement of polls that go on the building after the voting is completed and the results are counted. We have to all come out in numbers. Don't talk about what a few persons saying and think that the media storm in some sections of the media. We also have to deal with the fake news that's coming out from people like Rickford Burke, who is stockpiling arms and who is not. And Rickford, I know a long time, he hasn't changed. He's gotten worse. He's gotten worse. So Mr. Granger spoke of he has built a cohesive society in Guyana in the last 4 years. I will leave that comment for you to judge. I will now go to the telephones and take the calls. Hi, good evening. You're on the air. Good evening. Okay, that one is off. Hi, good evening. You're on the air.
Hello, night, sir.
Good evening.
I'd just like to comment on your discussions. As a young man growing up among you guys, I'm wondering whether things will change for the new generation, because what was in your time has been handed down to our time. There's no change. Young people would like to see something new. Would like to see light in our eyes, light in our homes, happiness on our street, safety to walk on the roads. We don't want you're putting up big buildings, you're putting up all these things, but what are we? What have we become? All the part of the rest of the world, people are looking at Guyanese in the Caribbean. We've created a legacy. We've created a legend. We've created a story by ourselves here. We want something new. We want something different.
Okay. And I think we can start with you making the difference, starting with your own circle of family and friends, and evaluate for yourself. Set your principles and your objectives. Set the criteria by which you evaluate policies, programs, and people, and make your decision and tell people to do it that way, based on principles rather than other factors that divide us, like how the two judges did. Hi, good evening, you're on the air. Okay, I have a few comments. Let me just take this. Mr. Nadir, good evening. Could you kindly explain your concept of hold no bars? Okay, the concept of hold no bars, I've changed the words a bit. It's really bar no holds, right? Bar no holds, meaning that I think it came from some kind of physical engagement battle where persons are allowed to engage without any rules of the games. So you hold no bars hold. So sometimes when you say like you have a race and they say everyone is 5-1, 3-1, and the bar is set at 10-1. Well, then got bar now, right? So this no holds bar is basically, say it like it is. The rules of engagement are not there. You do what you want, right? So my concept is, I changed it around a bit. That's why my fist. Hold no bars, because be firm and you will see it as you want. So that's the first comment I'm reading from WhatsApp, right? The second one is this. Nadir, what about your propaganda tonight? Good evening. Mr. Nadir, dead people can't vote, so what is the big issue? That's one. Moses looking for a place to put his head. He was removed like the slime from a gilbaka. This time is not long time. We're not making it easy. We have to take back our country. So this first one, dead people can't vote. So what's the big issue? Exactly. So dead people can vote, and there are checks and balances. Fingerprint, photo, picture, form of identification, picture form of identification, polling agents in the polling booth, counting in front of you. But why this big issue? But at least let's get it off, right? Let's go back to the callers, and then we'll head back to the WhatsApp message. Hi, good evening, you're on the air. Hi, good evening, you're on the air.
Good evening, Mr. Nadir. How are you doing?
Quite well, how are yourself?
I am trying. Mr. Nadir, when we talk about cohesiveness, the president, most of the time when they speak about the nation, they were talking about one ethnic group. Mm-hmm. There was only straight a nation. They're using the word nation, but they're particularly directed everything to one ethnic group.
Okay, thank you very much.
Another thing, one more quick point.
Good.
One of the things I would love to see is that we put some measures in place to deal with thieving. You know what I mean? Because the method that government basically uses to thief is by contracts and contractors, and we need to put some measures to deal with thieving. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your view. Hi, good evening. You're on the air. Hold no bars. Okay, if you're not there, I'm going to cut you off fast. Hello.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Nadir.
Go ahead. Good evening.
Is there any place in the Constitution that says that the President's interpretation of the Constitution is infallible, absolute, supreme, and indisputable?
Nowhere.
No way. Okay, and a second point to that. If the President is not adhering to the Constitution, should he compel Mr. Jagdeo to adhere to it? Can he compel Mr. Jagdeo to adhere to it?
Well, two wrongs don't make a right, and I know President Jagdeo will comply with the Constitution and any law that we have in our statutes.
Okay, one more point to that.
Go ahead.
When you play war break,
Mm-hmm.
you just play war break by yourself, or you have to have an opponent. Because I see the play war break between Mr. Nagabutu got down the battle dress
Mm-hmm.
and Mr. Jarton got the gunslinging.
Mm-hmm.
You just play war break by yourself, are you this man?
Well,
Or you gotta get opponents?
certain people play by themselves, have their imaginary friends. We know what they suffer from. Many times, if you don't give them their daily dose of medication.
For the medication.
Okay,
But
thank
you
you.
know the game got to start by calling election, and then the opponents will come out.
Yeah.
The elections is the battlefield, so they got to call the election, and then the opponents will come out to play the fair game, not by themselves.
Thank you. Okay. A few more callers. I'm not going to take any no caller ID, no private call. There was a person who twice, 609, and sir, I have your number in this phone. I also have stored it and I forwarded where it has to go. The 609, I won't call out the rest. Maybe I'll drop as time goes on one more of the digits. But that 609 caller who's been cursing, we have taken steps to block him. So he shouldn't come through again unless he uses another number, right? Hi, good evening. You're on the air.
Good night, Mr. Manzoor Nadir. What's up?
Quite well. Good evening. How yourself?
I would like to ask the question. This is President, he never no time with nobody. He can be equally black or whatever, but he just wants to do what he got to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that he's not right because he never time with nobody. He just go about. Because the finance minister say he never went there since 1978. And he say, how you do the mathematics and you get taught here and you went there.
Okay. Good. Thanks. Hi, good evening. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Mr. Nadir, how are you tonight?
Quite well.
You know, the thing is so funny that when, after the 21st of December,
Go ahead.
they had agreed that there was a no confidence motion, that eventually changed their mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
They went to the CCJ and they told, and they even say that they're going to accept the results,
Mm-hmm.
and now they change their mind,
Mhm.
right? And if they're not scared to go to the polls, why don't they go to the elections? As they say, they were very competent and all of that. Why all these fight let go to the polls to get another term, as they say they're going to get another term? So I don't understand that. Then I was looking at today at GCOM, they had people, they were only a handful of persons.
No, don't worry with that. Don't worry with the handful. There was a protest. There was a protest. But go ahead. Make the point.
No, what I'm trying to say, I probably expect half of the country will probably have gone out there. That's me. I answer protest is a protest, right?
Mm-hmm.
I thought how they were saying how much supporters they have, how many people will be going out there.
Mm-hmm.
Now for Mr. Nagabutu, I think probably somebody need to buy a green hat for him. Maybe he wants to look like Fidel Castro or somebody. Thank you.
Thank you. And the other thing to residents, viewers, listeners, what I get angry about is you hear we're going to go to Albaistang and bring all these people and we can go to Tiger Bay. What makes us from Albaistang warriors? What makes us? I think they abuse the place that I am a son from, a proud son from. Good? Hi, good evening. You're on the air.
Hi, good night.
Good evening.
I'd like to know that, who is selected to be the next president for this country?
Who?
Who is selected a better person to be the next person that's going to run this country?
I support Irfan Ali. Thank you. Next caller. Okay, so we have all the lines clear again. Wow, I had 7 callers and I missed on the cell phone. Good evening, you're on the air.
Okay, Mr. Nazar,
Go ahead.
I'd like to know why Mr. Greenwood didn't give the...
You got to turn down your phone a bit. If you don't turn it down in 2 seconds, I'll cut you off.
Okay then.
Good.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Why should he be a person like that as a president?
Mm-hmm.
As he accepts himself in that condition,
Mm-hmm.
he knows he already got defeat and in your confident motion. He go to CCJ, he do everything so he to the public must understand what he did. Why should he be a person like this?
You want me answer it, or it's a rhetoric question which you know the answer of?
Okay. So why should he be a person under limit?
Yeah.
He should be already out somewhere years.
If he answers that truthfully, if he asks himself and thinks truthfully, he knows the answer. Thank you. Hi, good evening. You're on the air.
Hi, good night, Nadia.
Good evening.
I don't know, we don't have a president. We have an acting president right now. And people tell me president.
No, you don't have an acting president. Go ahead.
Yeah, because the CCA rules.
Yeah, no, but he has to resign and call elections. We still have to recognize him as president.
Right now, she's acting.
After Monday, and we get an order, and whatever that order is, and if that order is thrown out, let's say the worst happens, and I don't want to say what the worst can be, right? Then we will have, some serious questions to ask. So right now, don't call him acting. Let's still give him the office. He's in the office. But as the president of this country, he has to love democracy more than himself. Thank you. Okay, just clearing up the lines. Good. Okay, so lines are free again. Go ahead. Yes, so, you have to show that you love democracy. Just don't talk the talk. You got to also walk the walk. And we're not seeing that happening by the president and his government. Hi, good evening. You're on the air. You're on the air. Go ahead. You have to speak up. Sorry. Speak up. Okay, I can't hear you properly. Sorry about that. Hi, good evening. You're on the air. Go ahead. You're on the air. Go ahead. Hi, good evening. You're on the air.
Hey, good night, sir.
Good evening.
Here I want to say one.
Tell me.
I'm an aged person. I live in this world 80 years now.
Congratulations, sir.
And I would like to know how we can get people taking our pension money, our taxpayer money,
Mm-hmm.
and send them children abroad to study.
Mm-hmm.
And what we can't get money to send we children them to an ordinary school in Georgetown.
Thank you very much.
We can accept people like them, though.
Thank you. Hi, good evening. You're on the air. Okay. So what we have to do is to be a little bit patient when you call, so as to hold the line and stay on the line, so that when we get to you, then you will have the opportunity to make your views known, heard, and try to influence other along your lines. Good. But a point raised by that caller with respect to the education, we raised that last week. We said, look, we got no problem with people getting scholarship, but let it be even, so that if it's that the 10 top students of the country gets a scholarship of $10 million a year to study anywhere they want, then so be it. You just can't pluck out one school and say this is the best graduating student from one school, and we're giving this one as against other schools. Hi, good evening. You're on the air.
Hi.
Go ahead. Good evening. Walaikum
Good
salam.
evening, sir.
Good evening.
I would like to the public to know this country is running backwards,
Mm-hmm.
so that we could achieve many more assets in this country. We have many resources, and the people in this country, like Mr. Patterson and the others,
Mm-hmm.
they have nothing to show the public in this country. No respect and no regard, because you know why? They have no respect for the people in this country.
They ain't got respect for
Many
themselves.
more out of it and don't have nothing to show the public over it.
Thank you. Okay, so no respect Mr. Patterson and others like him have for the country and for the people. Hi, good evening. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi, good night.
Good evening.
The next person will be Infinali.
Go ahead.
Yes, why not be more on, come out and be on the TV, calling program and do more on it if he's going to be the next future people to be,
I will certainly pass your suggestion on, and you will see much more. He's actually been going from community to community, not on talk all in, but you see him face to face, touching the flesh.
yeah, I don't think because he's supposed to be, if he's going to be next candidate as the president for the PPP,
Mm-hmm.
he's supposed to be more on the agenda on calling more on.
But he has been doing a lot of the work every single day. 10, 15, 20 communities are seeing, feeling, touching the Honorable Irfan Ali, right? Look out for him in your area. Where are you from?
I'm not. I'm from Guyana.
No.
Worldwide Guyana.
Which-
I'm born and grew in Guyana.
Which part you're living in so that I can send him to
I'm
you?
from Guyana. You know which part is Guyana?
Okay, sweetheart. Thanks a lot. Okay, but Mr. Ali has been in so many communities and continue to do that every day. Go ahead. You're on the air, sir. Ma'am. Go ahead. Hello? Okay. Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Good.
Mr. Nadir, you're a person I have a lot of respect for. But I listen you have, over Mr. Nagamutu. You got to put that one side. You got to talk what is important and just put that one side. Because if you get if you said Mr. Nagamutu looking for a place you are looking for a place to be in the PPP also.
Okay.
That nobody don't vote for you.
Thank you very much.
Surprise of your behavior as a big man sit there and with a bare face and say these things. You
Okay.
gotta stop it. Because as you said, two wrongs don't make a right. And you are talking wrong things.
Mhm.
What is it that the president is doing that is upsetting you?
It ain't upsetting me, it's upsetting
That
democracy.
the prime minister, you gotta put yourself right.
Good. Thank you for your views. You finish? I don't want to cut you off, but you finish? Thank you. Hi, good evening. Okay, that one doesn't turn the TV down, so you get cut off. Hi, good evening. You're on the air?
evening.
Good evening.
I got one more point. This man saying that Naga is the best prime minister they got.
Yeah.
Is for the whole, let me say, for all the years.
Right.
And how Ramjatan overall
Mm-hmm.
is that easiest prime minister now or Ramjatan is prime minister?
No, Nagamutu is. Ramjatan hasn't reached there yet. I don't think he can get a chance to reach there.
But me see had some election and then say,
No, he win the vote to be the candidate, not the prime minister. The candidate. Right?
good, thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay, so one person said to the caller who said I was looking for a place like Nagamutu, it was the person who had sent that message says, tell the caller, I was only reading the comment from Facebook. And if I have my camera, I can zoom it into you. Hi, good evening. Go ahead. You're on the air. Hello?
Good night.
Good evening. Good evening.
The idea is, as the woman called, you can see bullyism. And the PNC party has been known from 64 to none of terror, violence, and bullyism.
Mm-hmm.
These people ain't got no reason in this. And let me come to the Granger. He come from into the PNC.
Mm-hmm.
They were much talk, even Norton.
Mm-hmm.
Rigging. He was born by in the army.
Mm-hmm.
Was part of the rigging mechanism. People got to remember this man is well grooving as a rigger.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, one expect this election and got a lot of kicking.
Of course.
They will do everything possible to take off the 200,000 people as we see, off the register.
Hey, I just said so. He says so.
Well, I tell you, it's not going to happen.
Okay, sure.
You can see the moves. If you look, I have had a look at the people being trained to go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
One type of people.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and it's mostly people from the WRSM and the YSM and them kind of people as you see today at the little...
Okay, you made a point, so we have to look out, right?
Yeah.
Good, thanks. Hi, good evening. You're on the air?
Yes, thanks, sir.
Good evening.
You gotta stop criticizing. When you were there, you never do anything for nobody, you know.
Thank you. Go ahead.
You have to stop criticizing.
I have a right, that's my democratic
You
right.
never do nothing for the poor people. They never.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't understand why you're criticizing the APNU politicians. You shouldn't be criticizing. You shouldn't be criticizing because you are doing a lot of corruption in this country. So you shouldn't talk.
Okay, I'll give you a chance. You come in, face me 15 minutes. You can talk about all the things we did that were corrupting and so forth, right? Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, so he has the right to his view, which is wrong. Hi, good evening. You're on the air. Go ahead. Hello? Hi, good evening. Okay, clearing all the lines again. So I want to say to the last person, clearly you live in a different country than I did live in the past.
Mr. Nadir, good night.
Go. Sorry, let me turn the phone around. I don't want to expose your number. Go ahead.
Good night, Mr. Nadir.
Good evening.
Yes. When Mr. Ali wins the election, I think we should give Mr. Rock from Georgia Prime Minister position.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Hi, good evening. That person had a chance already. Recognize the number. Can give one set of people to dominate. Hi, good evening. You're on the air. Go ahead. Hello.
Hello, boss.
You're on. You're on. Good evening.
Now, we're doing the no confidence election with Sharon that
Mm-hmm.
when he come back in his...
Hello.
Hello?
Yeah, you're on the air. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, what is the government doing with him?
Which government? This government?
Yeah.
Well, I can only tell you what I read in the newspapers. Mr. Vice President and Minister of Public Security, Kamra Ramjatan, said there's not enough evidence because people are coming forward and he's not, and Sharon Das is not here. So while he's saying that they can't do nothing to him, I believe if Sharon Das comes back to the country, he's going to be immediately arrested. Good? Thank you. Okay, so let's get to a couple more calls. It's now...
Hello, good night, Mr. Nadir.
Good evening, you're on the
You
air.
gotta understand, you see a lot of people talking, those are the soup gainers. Those are the people in the pot. So they're not talking, you concerning them with Prime Minister.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one more important thing. See, we do not have election commission who would really authorize households you know what, the household
Yeah.
who have to authorize them?
Well,
The new election commission that will get it.
no, in fact, it's not provided for in the law. There is a court case which hasn't come up yet, where it's being challenged because there is no provision in our law. Mr. Patterson, that illegally appointed chairman, along with the PNC commissioners, they said they made a policy decision to have house-to-house registration. They made a policy. There ain't no policy can trump any law, right?
Yeah.
So now that he is illegal, you know, I can't see that decision has any validity, right?
So until we have a new election commission.
Yeah, and a full commission, right? Thank you. Hi, good evening. You're on the air. Go ahead. You're on the air. Hi, good evening. You're on the air. Sorry, I'm not hearing you well. Oh, I think you said I was corrupt. Thank you very much. Hi, good evening. You're on the air.
Hey, Pussy, Okay.
Okay, I think we just got our regular friend calling again. And I think it's time now we go more serious with that caller. Hi, good evening.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Nadir.
Go ahead.
I think that the president is illegal right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you could tell us after Monday
Mm-hmm.
when the next attend of the PPP
Mm-hmm.
and if the election date is not fixed.
Well, let's hear what Monday will bring, right?
Sorry?
Let's hear what Monday will bring. Let's not speculate.
Okay. And I think that the president fully well know that he cannot hold him back to power, so he try hold him.
Thanks.
Try.
Hi, good evening. You're on the air.
Hi, good evening. I these callers calling and interrupting you for expressing your opinion, and they could express their opinion. What advantage they have over you?
They don't have any, but you know, you have to give them
Why
a
you
chance.
allowing them?
You have to.
You have a right to express your opinion, just like now they have
Exactly.
the right to express their opinion, and they have the right to be up to PNC, and you have the right to be PPP.
I have a right to be anybody I
Everybody
want to
have
be.
a right to be what they want. Why
Thank-
they should criticize you for being what you want?
Frank, your views there, caller, just reflects this other one. Mr. Nadir, you have a right to criticize. It's your democratic right. Just like they have, you should not stop. Thank you very much. Doing or saying what you feel is right. It's called freedom of speech. Something this government want to stop. Thank you very much. Hi, good evening. You're on the air.
Good, sir.
Good evening.
I want to tell you what they choose you as a prime minister candidate.
Sorry, I had a long stint. I was happy to serve, and I'm prepared now to inform you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for the endorsement. Hi, good evening. You're on the air. Go ahead. Good evening. Thank you very much. I'm going to be very short because we have about 4 minutes remaining on the program, and we have to take as many calls.
Mr. Nadir, good night.
Good evening.
Yeah, so you did a good job, and you don't worry what they are saying that.
You know the story about sticks and stones, right?
Because even today I saw Nagamutu on the television,
Mm-hmm.
and he said that the best 4 years that all the public's life that in government was this 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And if the Green government go back to office,
Mm-hmm.
me certainly sure, and another guy me certainly sure that these people are punished the most.
Thank you.
These kind of people.
No, man, don't worry about that. The tide raise and lower all ships. If punishment comes, it comes to everybody. If bad government comes, it will bring bad for everybody. The issue here is principle, right? Hi, good evening. Go ahead.
Mr. Master,
Go ahead. Good evening.
I would like to tell the public that they must see what from 4 years, what the achievements we didn't have in this country. Our jobs are fixed. This government don't have anything. They steal everything and knowing to Indian people in this country. They have no benefit to show the Indian people, and that's why we need. They are so disobedient to the people of this country. They sell we out over nothing. They have nothing to achieve to show we poor people in this country. They just think about it.
Thank you. Okay, we're taking a few calls. Hi, good evening. You're on the air. Go ahead. You're on the air. Okay. Hi, good evening. You're on the air.
Hello?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Go.
I am not too much of politics, but
Mm-hmm.
I wanted two parties to come together as one
Mm-hmm.
and stop fighting and run this country for their people and stop fighting and fighting every day, every minute of the day.
Thank you very much.
So let it come together and be as one
Thank you.
and stop with this racialism thing.
Thank you. Okay. Good night. These people who keep calling, just come on. This one here, it says, yes, these people keep supporting the coalition should wake up and smell the smoke before it's too late. I'll take 2 quick callers. I have 2 minutes remaining. Hi, good evening. You're on the air. Hi, good evening. You're on the air.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You can tell me what it costs for the president going to Cuba.
No, I don't want to get there. The president is entitled to whatever medical attention he wants. Hi, good evening. You're on the air.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
I have a bicycle. The corner beg me for food for them. I give you things and give you everything there.
Go ahead.
But I'm not going to beg you, give you this, give you this. I want to beg you. They want to give this thing now.
Thank you very much. He says you had the best 4 years ever in this country. And the final caller, go ahead. You're the final caller tonight.
Good night, Mr. Manzoor Nadir.
Good evening.
I'm just calling to make my contribution.
Please do. You're going to be
It
the
was the
final
Philippine
caller.
time, you're going to gather on the corner 2 and 3. And now everybody's criticizing and talking. I see nothing wrong. This country belongs to the people, not the politician, and they are going to get the people frustrated. So y'all please stop it now and get yourself in order.
Good. Thank you very much. So if you love democracy, let's have elections and let's get this country in order, respecting people's rights, right? With that, on behalf of Kevin and the directors of MTV, on my own behalf, we want to say thank you for listening, for calling, for sharing your views. And we hold strongly to your views, but ensure that you don't bully people to accept yours or impose your views on other people with force. And that's the difference between a Democrat and a dictator. So, on that note, again, thank you, and you have a very good last remaining 29 minutes of June the 21st, 2019. See you next week. Thank you very much.